Welcome, everybody, to Dingers and Discourse, a Mario Baseball podcast. It's a bit of a different week here at the pod. We're giving some people a week off, giving some people a chance to rest up, but we are still out here with a couple of super special guests. So this week on the pod, I will be hosting along with one of our regular hosts, the Butter Dog himself, Crazy, along with two super special guests. We have Matt Gree, the Muted Assassin, and Vickless Falcon. Matt Gree, if you want to introduce yourself first to the Mario Baseball community, if they don't already know who you are.
Yeah, so hello, everyone. Like you said, I'm Matt Gree, the Muted Assassin. I joined the Mario Baseball community back in May. And so I'm one of the older people in this podcast and in the MSSB scene age-wise. And then also, I'm probably one of the original net play grinders. So I've put up over 550 net play games, and I've also expanded into content and a lot of stuff to do with the Rio web and stats. So I've got a lot of hands all over the place in the MSSB community.
Yeah, that's May of 2021, just so you people aren't confused. He's like, I'm super old, but I only came in May. May of 2021, he is an OG. And yeah, if you check out Matt Gree on YouTube, posts a lot of his ranked games, and it's super nice. It's probably the biggest critical mass of Mario Baseball you can watch, and he plays a variety of people. He'll post videos with people that are just joining and just starting, so you can look at those, and he posts video against some of the top people. He just posted a video of him playing ranked against Nude Cactus recently, so go out and check his channel for sure. And then we're joined by Vickless Falcon, the proprietor of the Falcon Pop. Vickless, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Clutch, thanks for having me. So I joined the Discord back in, I believe it was last July or August, so coming up on a year now. Didn't get into net play until October, November, and that's kind of the time around where I found Falcon Pop, made a video on that. That definitely blew up, which was really cool to see. Since then, played Stars Off, Stars On, Classic, UU, kind of spread all around, which I don't know, probably hurts me competitively in each one, but I enjoy playing all of them. And then also a moderator in the Discord, so just kind of an all-around advocate, for all things going on in the community.
Yeah, I know when I first joined, Vickless was super helpful in getting me in. He is also the TO for Rookie Rumble, so a lot of newer net players seem to find their way to Vickless pretty quickly. He's a super nice person in the Discord, great person to start talking about Mario Baseball with, always helpful. So yeah, super excited to have both of you on the pod this week. And so we are going to go ahead and get into our weekly roundup. Kicking it off, we are going to go back to the Dinger City Members Tournament. It was the first ever Members Tournament. This is a new thing that Dinger City is putting together. It is open to anyone who is a member of the channel. It is $3 a month. So if you like Dinger City's content already and you want a net play tournament, they're going to do it bi-monthly, they were talking about. Go in, give $3 a month, and it's a $3 entry towards this tournament. Look at it that way, and it helps our boys over at Dinger City. So the first one was 13 participants. Possibly the biggest story of the tournament was Crit Nick held Canada's internet hostage. So Hell's Hero had to drop from that tournament. He was expected to be the top seed, and he was unable to join due to that nationwide internet outage. So it left a clear top three of myself, Crit Nick, and Matty Ice in that tournament. Crit Nick and myself met in the semifinals. We were both called the biggest Malders in Mario Baseball by Joe Baseball, and proceeded to have an 18-12 slugfest filled with many moments that could have led to some malding. But I at least kept my cool. I don't know about Crit Nick. I mean, he called me some nobody on the stream after, but anyways, all in good jest. Love you, Nick. So anyways, 18-12 to get through there. Matty Ice coasted to finals, 15-5 in his opening game, beat the Wonder Bear himself, Tyler, 12-0. And then we go to the finals, and it was a best of three. Matty Ice takes it 4-3, 3-2 against me, winning both games on a bunt RBI. The first one was a walk-off bunt RBI. The second one was in like the 7th or 8th. Super close games. I know, Matt, you had a chance to watch some of those games. What are some of your thoughts as you were, I know you weren't closely watching them, but as you watched those games?
Yeah, so Matty Ice just played his normal, typical game that you've seen. I mean, he hasn't been as active on net play, so it was good for some newer people to be able to watch him some more. I know that he got some spotlight in the LAN tournament they had at the meetup, but then just being able to participate in this tournament as well, I feel like it's good for people to see how Matty plays because it's pretty unique. He does the super controlling style. He will bunt all the time, so it's very fitting to have won both games on bunts. And not a lot of people play the way he plays. He does a little bit of base running and then just a lot of control and really gets in your mind, makes you work for every single run that you have to get, and then kind of just controls the game in a way that isn't really seen as much on net play. So I feel like having that exposure for people to see a different way to play the game was really cool.
Mm-hmm. I think the way that Matty plays, he always likes to call it small ball. I feel like we've been seeing that kind of fall out of the meta recently. So it's good. It's kind of fun to see him, use his old style that he's always been using to win a fairly sized tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, what's the saying? Death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like, I remember playing Matty once, a few net played Superstar tournaments ago, where I think I only lost like 8-4, but it felt like I was down 10 runs just because he'll, get a few runs at the beginning of the game, only be up like 3-0 or something. But just the way he scores runs is so methodical that it's just like super demoralizing, and you feel like you're not even in the game, even though the score is probably, closer than what it should be.
And one other thing, he always throws a little wrinkle in or two. I know one game he picked Paragoomba, sorry. And there was another game he made an interesting pick. I don't know if Clutch, you want to expand on that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember it anymore. What did he pick? He picked Ron in game 2 because it was Dennis's birthday earlier that week. And so he did it in homage to his friend at Dinger City. I mean, I know they're close. He literally stayed at his house for the meetup. So some people might see that as disrespect. I don't think either of them had a huge impact on the game. They were slightly worse bats, but defensively it didn't really come up. And if you hit with them, which he did get some hits with both of them, then it's not much different than 9th picking some other people for those spots. So it was super interesting. You can tell when he's lock, which was the meetup, and you could tell when he's just kind of coasting, which I think was the members tournament until finals. I think he had to turn it up a little bit. So I guess I'll take pride in that. I don't even know if he'll say that though. But I guess the last thing I'll say is that when I first came into the Discord, Matty was towards the tail end of his grind because it was right before spring training kicked up. And I will say is I do not relate to Krazy's style of play or Cactus's style of play or Hell's style of play, but I relate having a Matty Ice. If I can play like Matty Ice, I am super happy. I'm super big on small ball. I love controlling the game. And it's a game that I like playing a lot more. I felt like when I got up by a run or two, it felt impactful versus like when I play some of the other top players, I don't feel comfortable or feel like I really have an advantage until I'm up like 5. Because any inning they can just go off for 7. And Matty is more than capable of that, don't get me wrong. But I feel like you said, that strategy of death by 1,000 cuts, he really, like I said, tries to keep the game in check, tries to keep it down, tries to make you feel like you're beating yourself, not that you're losing. It's a really special style of play, and it's something that I definitely try and take from personally. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for being someone to emulate at the top level of play. Moving on from the members tournament, I want to take us over to Swiss Blitz. This was something happening just last night at the time of recording. It was hosted by Big Nick, his first foray into tournament hosting, so congrats to him. The Swiss Blitz did use 1-2-1-1 draft, and they used Swiss style. So for those at home that do not know what Swiss style tournament is, you are randomly matched up in round 1 against an opponent. And then after that, you are matched up with people of a similar or same record. So if you win match 1, you will play someone that won match 1. And if you lose, you'll sit out and you'll go and play people that lost round 1. And that's the idea, is basically if you keep winning, you keep playing people that are winning. If you lose, you play people at a similar record of yourself. The idea is you're playing similarly matched up opponents throughout the whole tournament. It's supposed to be fun, even if you are not competing to move on to the top spot. So their first foray with Swiss in Mario Baseball, as far as I know about, 12 participants. I know there was a lot of late minute drops, which was unfortunate. Chris Toasty takes the Swiss part of the tournament, goes 5-0, beat Sam N, beat Maury, who I understand Chris was down 11-0 in that game and came roaring back to win 14-12. Poke Bunny, Boomerang Bro, and Faceman in the final round to secure that 5-0 Swiss play. Also in the top 25%, moving to Top Cut, Boomerang Bro, and Faceman. So as far as I know, those three will go on to a single elimination bracket next July 19th, as in 5 days from recording. So I guess for the rest of my fellow pod hosts, anyone catch some of the games? Anything that stood out from either 1-2-1-1 draft or anything you noticed with the Swiss style play?
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think with the Swiss style, something that's never been tried before, with Mario Baseball. Seems like it went fairly smooth. I know Faceman had a comment after it was over saying that it was just like 3 hours of just straight baseball, which is really really cool to see. And then just like seeing some of the scores, like Boomerang Bro beat Super 63 11-10 in the first round, so like that could have shook up how the rest of the format went. You mentioned Chris Toasty being Maury 14-12. The game after Boomerang Bro's 11-10 game had a 14-13 game with Faceman. So the first two games scoring over 10 runs and having a 1-run game, and then round 3 Boomerang Bro beat Walrus 15-10. So like 3 games in a row, just insane baseball going on. So just kind of looking through the scores, like a lot of them were pretty close games, which is good to see. And I suppose that's a result of the format where you kind of get more adjusted to opponents at your level, probably, since you're playing opponents that won and the people that lost are playing opponents that lost. So I'm all for different varieties of tournaments, whether it's like this where you're playing 6 games as fast as you can, or we have the NBA Cup going on, so that's going to be like 1 game a week, which is probably more of like my style, or maybe people who like just aren't available as much, that you'll still get an opportunity to play in a tournament. So overall, I think it was a pretty successful event.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a big success for the Swiss format, like you were saying. I think a lot of the participants acknowledged that it was very good to just go from one game to the next game to the next game. It made it sound like it was extremely seamless, and there was like almost no downtime in between games, which, if that's the truth and we want that in the future, I think that's like big news for potential like tournament formats.
I think the only thing that I know is that TCG, trading card games, very popular to use Swiss format. The more participants you add, the more delays there are, because you can't move from one round to the next till every match is completed. So with 12 participants, only 6 games at a time, there's not really going to be many holdups. Less chances for games to go into extras, less chances for crashes. I think it's a super great one-day format, and I think for the most part it does go super smooth. But I will say that if this gets up to a thing that 40 people go into it for a day, it might start getting a little bit longer. But I think it's still, as long as it's run really smoothly, it's still a super great format.
Yeah, so for me, it was the first time I'd ever heard of a Swiss tournament. I'd like look up what are they doing and stuff like that. So it seems like a really cool format. I wish I could have participated, but just some great baseball. You could see like the matchups were pretty even and a lot of scoring. So that's kind of what this, at least on the even matchup, that's what the Swiss format's intended for. So it was really cool to see how it worked out like that.
All right, so hopefully looking for some more Swiss style tournaments in the future, but we will now move on to Stars on Showdown 7. 32 participants. We've talked about it a couple times on the pod already. They finally played top 3. It was Brew. It was Remke. It was Boomerang Bro, and the way it finally shook out, Remke beat Boomerang Bro in winners finals, dropping 1 game. He only won at 2-1. However, that was the only game he dropped all tournament. Boomerang Bro takes down Brew in losers finals. Boomerang Bro comes back up, unable to scratch out a game against Remke in the rematch in grand finals. Remke, your 2-time Stars on Showdown champ, Spring Series champ. He just owns all the championships right now, and he's going to be gunning for an MPSS next when 11 goes live. So I guess again the big storylines are Brew is washed, but apparently being washed means you finish top 3 now. Which he made a comment about that. He's like, if washed means I'm top 3, then I'm glad that I was so highly thought of that is washed now. Boomerang Bro coming in second for the 3rd time. I don't know when he's gonna crack that wall that he just keeps running into. He just can't get over the hump. And yeah, Remke continuing to prove his meteoric rise to the top in both Stars On and Stars Off. So Vickless, what did you think? I know you're one of our bigger Stars On players here on the pod tonight, so if you want to give your general thoughts about Stars On Showdown 7.
Yeah, it was really good to see 32 people in it. One of the largest Stars On tournaments we've had. I know this is the first tournament that both Integrosity players entered, and one of them did not come out on top, and also Remke knocked out both of them. Back-to-back beat Peach Beach in the winners quarters, and then beat Brew in winners semis. So that's definitely the first time that's happened in a Stars On tournament. So interesting to kind of see the dynamic shifting, especially just Remke kind of on another level right now compared to everyone else, even on the ELO sheet. I think a clear 100 points ahead, which is pretty impressive on the Stars On ELO sheet, just due to the chaotic nature of Stars On ELO, where you can play a series and beat someone in a series 2-1, but maybe you're a net loser in ELO for that matchup. So, but otherwise, there were some good runs. Stuff Flatbread made a huge run, got top 6, really improving as a Stars On player for sure. Walrus getting a top 6 as well. Was good to see, him still staying around in Stars On and playing his style and playing really well. So, and then we had Nooch 17 beating Chris Toasty. That was probably the biggest upset of the tournament. And then Walrus beating Toasty to keep Toasty out of top 8. So I'm sure we'll see the Toasty Revenge Tour come out either in Wario Palace Stadium Series or the next Stars On Showdown. But otherwise it was great to see all the new people playing Stars On, and hope to keep that going.
Matt and Krasy, do you think there will be a new wave of people that can main in both Stars Off and Stars On and be top of the pack in both? Or is this something exclusive to Remke?
I don't know. I don't know necessarily about the future. What I do know though is that it's an extremely difficult thing. I feel like we were talking about how Toasty was doing really well in the Swiss Blitz earlier, but he didn't do as well in Stars On. So I think that might have something to do with it. Kind of just like the complete antithesis of the two. It makes it hard to balance both. So I think it is probably a Remke exclusive, yeah.
Yeah, definitely for right now. I mean, I know in the past I used to play some Stars On. I was probably in Stars On Showdown 3 or 4. A couple of those tournaments, and one of those tournaments is going on around the time of NPSS, and I just had such a hard time getting out of Stars Off mode and trying to get around on those pitches faster. And so for that reason, I just stopped playing Stars On. I really like the game mode, and I like some of the stuff that I've seen in the meta development of it, but for me, it's just hard to be able to commit to both at the same time. And Remke's just done a great job of being able to do that. Hopefully some more people are able to do that. I feel like it's really cool to see people be able to do it. It's kind of like switch hitting in baseball or some other interesting feats that people can do. So just being able to nail the timing on the swings on both modes is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, I think when I first came in the server, the first tournament after Rookie Rumble, I think I did Stars On Showdown. I forget if it would have been 4 or 5 at that point. But I remember it helped me a lot in Stars Off because the pitches looked like changeups then because of the difference in speeds. And I actually really appreciated, that it really slowed the game down for me when I was first learning it. But now whenever I go back and forth, it's pointless, because if you try and have a Stars Off mentality in Stars On, you are going to get blown by. You're not going to be able to hit at all. It's going to be super frustrating. And if you have a Stars On mentality in Stars Off, I think you are way ahead. You are guessing, not reading, which I think there's a lot more strategic guessing and strategic looking for specific pitches in Stars On compared to Stars Off. I think Stars Off you can do a lot more read and react because of the slower pitching. And so it's a really tough feat. And so, like I said, I think it's impressive what Remke is doing right now. And I think more people can do it in the future. And I hope some people try it. And I know, like I said, Krasy is sometimes weighted into Stars On. Like I said, Vickless, I know you play both. I know you're kind of in that second tier, third tier for both, depending on who you talk to. But seeing Remke win tournaments in both is super impressive. So we'll see if it continues. We'll see if anyone else can do it. But I know Stars On Showdown 8 is going to get started soon, and they'll be rolling again, just like we normally have with Stars On Showdown. And our final tournament to round up this week, Stadium Series, Malice in the Palace. 22 participants just started. There's still a ways to go. But in the initial round of games, we have the tournament's TO on Vickless. Has there been anything that people have been talking about that they've noticed with playing all their games at Wario Palace to start?
Yeah, I think I haven't seen too many of the games so far, but I know coming in, some of the things I personally have been looking at are, Wario Palace is known as a place where you can hit home runs. It's, one of the shortest ballparks in the game, right around with DK Jungle. So I guess kind of what I've been looking for is seeing if people are just building, these huge power lineups going for home runs, or if there's a little strategy, trying to, potentially slap into the tornadoes or over to the chain chomps. I know just in one of my recent classic games I played, Walrus was my opponent, and he had I know this is Stars Off, but he had a very singles heavy, slapping team, and I have a power team, and like Wario Palace is my home stadium, and he just kept trying to slap into the tornadoes all game, and it worked really well for him. So I'm interested to see if anyone tries to apply that to Stars On. Then a couple other points are, when you do go for those tornadoes, do you take a risk, especially if you're like an underdog, and just continue to send your runners? Even though if the ball gets caught, it'd be for sure you'd get, a double or triple play. Like say you have the bases loaded and 1 out, are you willing to, risk it all and try to run everybody in and hope that tornado lands? And then the other thing, kind of to bounce off the Peach Gardens tournament, is where is Yoshi playing? At Peach Garden, Yoshi was getting played a lot at second base just because you could put someone else as Clamor in the outfield. But here at Wario Palace, center field is really deep, and a lot of people are going for home runs compared to line drives at Peach Garden. So is it better to put Yoshi in center field or compared to second base, or do you put Yoshi like on a corner outfield and try to catch some of these tornado balls? So it'll be really interesting to see, where Yoshi plays, just because Yoshi's probably going to fall in the draft a little bit, just due to people picking more power hitters, trying to hit those left field and right field short porches. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, and seeing some of these scores roll in so far. Definitely more high scoring than the Peach Garden tournament was. We've already had Stuff Flatbread got upset by Wheels in the first round. 2-0 sweep there, and then in the second round we saw Stuff Flatbread beat Super 63 20-10, which is crazy high scoring. I believe Super 63 was winning 9-5 in that game, and Flatbread came roaring back, and that was in losers bracket games. So I think we're going to see some really high scoring games. As far as predictions, obviously like Remke and Brua are on my side of the bracket. I think they're going to be right there at the end. I think a sleeper in this tournament, it's crazy to say they're a sleeper, but I think Hell's Hero could make a deep run in this tournament just due to I don't know, he likes Wario. It's what Wario Palace doesn't play Stars On as much, but definitely knows what he's doing, and it's an offensive ballpark, and he's big on offense, so that's kind of who I've got my eye on for this tournament.
And one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most from this tournament, I'm not playing in it, but I'll probably be watching some of the games if I can. It's with the tornadoes at Wario Palace, because excluding the chain chomps, there are really no like crazy things about Wario Palace other than the tornadoes. And I think I want to say Matty Ice talk about it before, but I'm pretty sure you can figure out where the balls or like a general area of where the ball is going to go based on like how fast it's going and where it hits the tornado. So I'm interested to see like if people can figure out the outplay potential from like a fielder's perspective there. Because if you can figure out where it's going to go every time, it'll be a lot easier to field and, you know, prevent those extra base hits that might happen.
Yeah, like everyone else said, I'm really interested to see how players take advantage of the tornadoes. I was thinking about it, and I feel like the tornadoes are kind of like body check, you know? It's something that is a little bit hard to activate, but if you get it in the right situations, you end up with like a 50-50 scenario where maybe something amazing happens, the ball goes in the wrong direction, and you get like a triple, but at the same time, it could go terribly wrong, go right to a fielder, and you get double played. So, a lot of high risk, high reward stuff, and it'll be interesting to see if players are trying to aim their balls towards the tornado. I'm not sure whether in stars on slapping or charging would be the best way to get the ball into the tornado, but it'll be interesting to see if the players have any thoughts on that or if it changes their strategy at the plate at all.
Yeah, super interested to see what meta developments come from this stadium series. It's the whole idea of doing it. Because Stars On, you go from stadium to stadium and you don't notice things. When you play 3 straight games and specifically a whole tournament at one stadium, you start to pick up on things and notice things, and it just advances the mode. So really great series there. Can't wait to see the outcomes from there. But that'll do it for this week's Roundup. And so we will head into our first topic of the pod. We're going to start with viewer comments. The one we picked out this week was from PK Kirby. And it'll probably take us a couple weeks to get through because I want all our hosts to have the opportunity to answer this, but we'll start with this group of 4 this week. He said, a dumb question I have, which I think is not a dumb question. This is super creative and I'm happy to answer it. For the host of the next pod is, if you were in Mario Baseball, which of the 4 categories would you place yourself in? So I'm assuming he meant balance, technique, speed, power. And what would your special ability be? So if anyone wants to tackle that one first.
Yeah, I can go. I would say between the 4, I think technique is my favorite. And I think if I was in the game, like, technique would suit me. I feel like growing up in sports, like, I wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but like felt like I played my role well, tried to, you know, do the role the best as I could, and be like super technical. So, and I wouldn't be bobbling the ball hardly at all as a technique character compared to power and speed. So that's why I would pick technique. And then if I had one of the abilities, I think I'd go with sliding catch. I think sliding catch is super underrated, and I think a lot of times we don't activate it soon enough. And I think like activating sliding catch really soon can help you get to a lot more balls. And I just think it's a really cool ability, you know, that a few characters have that, you know, it makes a difference in whether they get picked or not. So yeah, I'd probably go as technique and then sliding catch.
I was thinking about it for a bit, and I actually have 2 answers. Well, one, it's not really answering the question, but one thing I would like to see is uh, it doesn't really fit me, but I think it'd be really cool if in Mario Baseball there was a speed character who had laser, someone who could play the outfield and then have laser home. So that's something I thought of. But then for me personally, I think I'd probably be a balanced character. I'm in a lot of different areas in the community. I'm content creating, making stats, grinding net play. So I feel like I just have a lot of balance all over the place. And then I'd probably end up going with laser. I'm not sure. I feel like it's a really great ability. I'm not sure how it fits me personally, but I just thought that one would be the closest ability. Another one I thought of was ball dash, maybe, you know, just a funny ability. No one doesn't get any use really, but just funny to have. So either one of those 2.
I think your idea of a speed character with laser would be super interesting. It sounds like a Ronald Acuna or a Mike Trout, maybe, just super great arms in the outfield. They have the range to cover. So it's not a crazy combination. It is in real baseball. And I know Mario Baseball is not real baseball. Don't hate me in the comments. Don't be like, well, they're playing with shells and trees, but you got to still take from something, and there is some source material to work from. So I think that's a super interesting combination, Matt. And maybe if we ever do a balanced patch, that should be something that's added. Give one of the speed characters some laser.
Yeah.
Crazy?
if I had to choose, I'd probably choose speed because I feel like whenever I play sports, I'm kind of like the scrappy kid that runs around and goes and grabs the ball. So I think if I was like out in the outfield fielding, I would be diving for balls, maybe bobbling more often. And I think my special ability would probably be super jump because I feel pretty coordinated about like jumping up and grabbing the ball. And I think one of my favorite things in this game is to like do a crazy super jump out in the outfield. I think that would be dope to do if I was a Mario Baseball character.
And if I were to pick mine, I would start with I'd be a balanced character. I think my bat is extremely similar to Luigi's. Go the other way, super great reach. Not weak at the plate, but we're not sending the ball out either. I feel that fits my offensive game really similarly, so that's why I went balance there. And then in the field, I think my super ability would be sliding catch. I understand this is not super common. 16-inch slow pitch softball. It's super common in Chicago/Illinois. I played it at college. We were champions of co-rec, and I would play either middle infield, so sliding catch plays really nicely there. We see Mario does good at second base with a good enough arm. Or the corners are really good. I would play some outfield, and I would make some ridiculous grabs coming in for the ball, making a last-second dive, timing it up, and saving some outs. I think that would be what I would pick for my special ability and category of character. So like I said, PK, thanks for the question.
I have one more thing to add.
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
So I play Ultimate Frisbee in college. But unfortunately, I do not have the ability to super jump or dive out for any Frisbee. So for those reasons, I did not choose myself to be a super jump or sliding catch player.
Imagine Ultimate Frisbee players with either. Oh my gosh. I played a lot of Ultimate in high school, so yeah, that'd be nuts. Mario Ultimate Frisbee 1. Sorry, Nintendo, don't take any ideas. You ruin every Mario sports game right now.
Oh, wow.
All right. Well, anyways, PK, thanks for the comment. Like I said, we'll probably wrap back around to that one next week again when we bring back some other hosts. I think that'll be a fun intro question from now on, so we'll have to keep using that one. All right. Next topic for this week, end of season 2. It was finally announced. It's been talked about for weeks. It's been talked about for a month at this point because we talked about beginning of July, and Cokes and the Rio dev team had some things to hash out with 0.1.9. It is ready to go. It is releasing on Saturday. It's going to come with a ELO board reset. And so a couple of things to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is now that we are pretty much at the end of the ELO leaderboard, there will be no real big changes before the end of the season on Saturday. What were the biggest surprises? Who rose up the leaderboard? Either, a new player that really impressed or a returning player that really improved themselves in season 2 of the leaderboard. Who took a hit on the board that you did not expect. And maybe some picks to click in the season, summer 22 leaderboard. Now that ELO is reset, they don't have some maybe early bad play to weigh them down. Who do we think we'll see higher up on the board in the next season?
I'll go ahead and start things off. So for me personally, I ended up pretty much the same spot I did last season. And it's a little disappointing, but also at the same time, I realized that I've gotten way better at baseball. It's just everyone else has been getting better. And so for me to end up at the same spot, I feel like that just says my growth is on pace with a lot of other people. And some people who weren't grinding at who were in the top of season 1 leaderboard have also just not been where they are at their same placement. So I think it really shows that overall, everyone is getting better at MSSB. And if you're not playing as many games, you're going to fall off. You're not going to be able to get to the same ranking you were last season. So being able to play games and have consistency in the season to season is going to be important to stay at the top of the leaderboard.
Matt, I know you're like top 10 right now, I believe. But when thinking about that, we've added Remke is number 1 right now, which I'm sure someone will mention at some point. I've been in top 10. I'm not there right now, but I think it's interesting that, you know, you're in the same spot, but I think there's more people competing for that spot. And so I think that's interesting that you probably numerically have not changed much, but I think you're spot on that you probably have gotten a lot better at Mario Baseball. And it's just there's more people gunning for those top sports on the leaderboard. And so it kind of makes it harder to be up there. And so even though you're in the same spot, it's still a huge achievement.
Yeah, I don't want to call out people specifically who haven't played as much, but there definitely are people who were in A tier or top of B tier last end of season and who haven't played as much, and then you see them sinking down to middle of B tier, lower A tier players.
Vickless, I know you were about to chime in.
Yeah. So I'd say as far as like things I saw that impressed me, there was a couple things. I would say one is seeing Poke Bunny at number 6 right now. Joined kind of near the tail end of season 1 in terms of like starting to play. And then, season 2 started and Poke Bunny jumped in and played a ton of games and was winning a lot of games. They may not have been against the top players right away, but eventually Poke Bunny got to play some of those players. We saw some results like beating Hell's Hero 11-0, notably, and some other games. So an impressive run from Poke Bunny to be able to stay up at number 6. And then the other one I kind of had my eye on was Cesarito at 15. Just remember he kind of came in one night randomly and just like started playing, and we kept throwing opponents at him. It was almost like meeting different bosses in a video game, and he just kept running people down. I think finally we had to put Krasy on him, and I think Krasy finally beat him that night, but the damage had been done. He'd already like crawled into A tier. I don't think he's been around as much since that run, and then I think he played in a NPSS too, but that was super fun to see. I guess the last thing I'll say is this is the first, maybe not the first season they've been on the leaderboard, but Dinger City definitely showed that they can compete in net play. We got JK in S tier. We've got Mr. Joe sitting at number 9, and then we also have Crit Nick at the edge of A tier as well. So I know there was a lot of talk, beginning of the season that Dinger City, maybe couldn't hang with the top net players, and I think they've definitely shown that they can.
I think Tyler's in B tier too, so that's 4 of the main 6, and I don't think Dennis doesn't play at all, and I have not seen City Hall Andrew around either. So for the people that have actually come into net play, like I said, I know Tyler is done an MPSS now and is in net play Classic League. Crit Nick will sometimes show up and usually will get ready for MPSs. Obviously, Joe Baseball, Mr. Joe, is around a lot, and Jason is similar will warm up for MPSs, but he clearly has shown that he can beat the top dogs and makes crazy losers runs, and that's what has him in S tier right now. So as much as we make fun of it, and as much as I don't think they have the tournament results maybe yet to prove it, although they have some really impressive top finishes to their names. They definitely show that they are not scrubs, and they are playing a high level of land baseball and then can translate it to net play as well.
Yeah, if I could just add one other thing that I have noticed recently is there was only, we were talking about transitioning stars off and stars on, like there was only 5 players that finished in A tier in both. So I'm interested to see, moving forward, does that number increase? Does that number decrease? Just seeing like if people decide to, main in one, or if people are going to try and continue to play both. I know, like I've mentioned, like I try to play both, but I've definitely tried to pick my spots in terms of when I'm playing. Like I've called it like having stars on jet lag, like going from stars on to stars off. I think if you pick your spots and, like play stars off for a week, and then, there's like a stars on tournament, and then you can focus on stars on for that week. I think it's possible to do a little better in both. It just kind of takes, a little bit of extra strategy.
Krasy, what were your takeaways from this ranked season?
I think just some of my main takeaways, and this isn't necessarily reflective of like the final board, but just kind of the the separation that we saw at different times of the leaderboard, like me and Remke and Cactus, I think all have had different stints where we've been like 100 elo above like the next closest people. And I thought it was very fascinating to see kind of, I don't know if I want to say separation in skill, but just separation in like just raw elo. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see any of that in the next leaderboard. Any like little reigns of dominance, like big win streaks that put someone over the top, or if we're going to see even closer competition now.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting with, it's proposed that we'll probably have more like 3-month seasons. I mean, this was 5. I don't know what season 1 was, but it sounded like for the most part that one went on for a while as well. We haven't had like a seasonal rotation planned in Mario Baseball before. And so I think that might be one of the downsides of it is, yeah, I think that was a really interesting time where all 3 of you made runs, and just because it took over 5 months, there was a story of the ranked season that it was a 3-chapter book where, like I said, Cactus kind of had his reign at the top, had his chance to repeat in MPSS, and then obviously Krasy, you got back to the top, and then Remke came in and stormed the net play scene, and now he is the undisputed champion thanks to Charge the Mound and you two parking the bus after that. So it'll be super interesting to see if we ever have a race like that again where there's multiple people at the top, or if it's just someone gets hot at the beginning of a season and they just can kind of maintain it. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch.
I think we're missing one of the biggest chapters of this season. Was definitely the very beginning. We saw Vickless Falcon rise to the top of the leaderboard, number 1 player right there. So I think that needs to be mentioned as well.
Yeah, I had a grand total of 25 minutes at the number 1 spot after I beat Hell's Hero, and then Krasy immediately challenged me to a game because he was number 2 at the time, and then I think he beat me like 7-1 or something, and then it was over. But I definitely made sure to get the snipping tool out on my computer and grab that one. And I mean, it's not framed in my house or anything, but that
it should be.
Cool moment. Yeah, no, it really should be. But yeah, that was a really fun moment. Even though it was earlier in the season, like there was just a lot of bouncing around at the top. It was fun to grab that top spot for a second.
Fletch, do you have any thoughts on your run? You went all the way up to S tier, had a little bit of a downturn towards the end, but do you think new season you'll be back up in S tier? What do you think?
So it was funny you brought up Poke, and I was thinking, I'm like, I donated so much elo to him in 1-run games in the past month. But yeah, no, the next question I was going to ask is, what were some of the biggest win streaks of the season? Obviously, I had 27 straight. Poke got up around 15, 16, or 18. That's when the money match with Matt happened. Was there any other big win streaks that I'm not thinking of?
Cactus, Remke, and Krasy all had a bunch of
I'm sure they
win
did.
streaks. I mean, you're going to have that at the very top.
Yeah.
I know Toasty had a really big one in Stars On too. I know Remke did as well, but I think Toasty got up to like 16 or 17 games in Stars On, which is like crazy just because the amount of like series or different games you're playing, and you're only playing 5 innings. So
yeah,
a lot harder to string them together. But yeah, in terms of what I'm hoping for next season, yeah, I think I'm proud to take the Grind King crown of season 2. I think I'm over 450 games right now, and that was not intentional. I just queued up and played. That's just what I wanted to do because I'm still learning the game. But I think next season I'll be a lot more selective with when I'm playing. I think it'll be more about getting prep for tournaments, putting my name at the top, and justifying top seedings in tournaments. So I think that's interesting to see going forward is how many people earn their elo from just playing a lot of games and having enough success and to be at the top, and which players just sprint out to a big lead and we know they're top players and they just kind of sit on their laurels and keep their spots at the top and then risk them when it comes to tournament time and prove that they belong there or not. I think that'll be interesting going forward.
I could give you the top 5 grinders right now if you want to know who they are.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
All right, so number 4 and number 5 are tied at 314 games. That's Remke and Ducky Don. Poke Bunny had 316, so got third. Second place was Sam N. So came in, I think, later than everyone else on here.
Yeah.
But still got 410 games in, which is crazy amount. And then, yeah, you were first with 462. So you were a clear 52 games ahead for the title there.
I promise I have a life, people. I promise. But I will say, like I said, I'll never do it again because I think one of the downsides of grinding that hard on the ranked leaderboard is there's so many hills and valleys. Like y'all know, sometimes I'd come and be like, my gosh, like I just got screwed on low trad and I lost someone and there was the reason that I fell so far on the board. I like lost a total of like 150 elo in a week because I like was like winning only 2 out of 3 games and I wasn't playing exclusively top players because I queued up in the queue and whoever spit out I got. And so I mean I deserve to lose every single of those points, but like when you played 450 games and you were up towards the top and then just one bad week like soils it all, I think that's a really tough thing. And again, at the end of the day, it's just internet points. It's for fun, so I do recognize that too. But when it's something you put your mind to and put a lot of time into, I think it makes it a little bit frustrating when those things happen. So, you know, versus if you, like I said, you get out to a big lead, you kind of be more selective, you play the top players, you play in tournaments, and if you lose it because you lose in tournaments, then whatever. You're playing people usually closer in skill level to you exclusively. So I think that is super interesting. Yep. The other thing I want to talk, Crazy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's crazy to think how many more games we have this season than we did last season. I know I wasn't here for the entire time last season, but like I want to say most people had less than 100 last season, but this season you almost can't even count how many people have over 100 games. And at this point on the board, we have what I see as over 6,500 just stars off games alone, which is kind of crazy to think about how many games that is.
Just the addition of so many net players, and I think it was just a good time. Like I said, the start of the season was the end of Matty Ice playing a lot, and so there's a lot of people around there, and then that was also the Action Esports video, so there was a lot of activity then. And then you think you were kind of in the spring part where we are a community that even for a 2005 game, I think there's a lot of college age kids or kids that are, I don't want to say kids, young adults that are in uni or college, so they can play a lot during the day, which I think increases the amount of games that can get played. And then I actually think the rate of games is kind of tapered off in the summer because, again, people are more busy during the summer when they're back home and things like that. So I'll be curious to see how next season goes, and then I think I'll be really curious to see if there's a large influx of games in the fall season when people head back to school. All right, and then the other thing we want to talk about with the end of season 2 going into the summer 2022 ranked season, 1-2-1-1 draft. It looked like it was going to be implemented. We've had some tournaments with it. I think people have kind of changed their minds. There's some people on both sides of the fence. I don't know the outcome at the time of recording. I know Cokes posed a question of which way we should go for the next ranked season. And so I know we've talked about it on previous editions of the pod, but I would love to get, now that we've seen some more tournaments and we have some new voices here, kind of what our thoughts are on 1-2-1-1. Should it be implemented? Should we hold off? Should we just say go ahead and do it because it might be a shorter season, and if it doesn't work well, then we just change it next season? Kind of what are our thoughts here?
I guess I can go ahead. So personally, I would say I've been probably more against 1-2-1-1, but I also haven't played it a ton, so I really can't speak from experience. What I like about it is just having just alternating picks. I think makes the draft a little more interesting. You can kind of break up some of those chem partnerships, like people go Mario Luigi a lot, or they'll go Waluigi Wario. So that's a lot easier to break those up, and that maybe kind of weakens like for Wario, for example, that can weaken Wario, not letting him pair with Waluigi. But I think if it is implemented, I just think first pick just has to really pay a little more attention during the draft. I think right now, player one just picks Bowser, then they pick Bro and either Yoshi or Boo most of the time, and then it's like kind of a free KB match most of the time, unless somebody is really good with KB. So they'll just have to think a little more clearly. I think chem partnerships are super important in the batting order right now, especially with some of the modding discoveries that we've learned with like slap hit multiplying and charge hit multiplying, that chem can affect slap hits a little bit. So I think you could see maybe some chem partnerships that we haven't seen in the past get picked up later. I know something that I've kind of mentioned with the Bowser team is kind of just not quite going full Bowser core, but I think having Bro on the Bowser team is still super important. I think you could get Paratroopa, put Paratroopa ninth as a star hitter in the lineup. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but even someone like I think someone like Green Koopa could have some value just due to a good leadoff hitter that has chem with Bowser, and you don't have to burn a star. Like, I think it's going to be super important for the player one team, or the first pick team, I guess I should say, to find where to use their stars. And I think you have to be really careful if you're just putting all your star stock into like 1-star hitters or like a Falcon Popper. I think you're going to want to use them maybe more for some captain stars, and then just at the end of the draft you're going to need to try and find some value with some slap hitters that you're comfortable with. And so I'm fine with us trying it if we do end up trying it. I think ultimately, it'll prove itself worthy or not worthy, or maybe we unlock Bowser and get rid of the captain rule as if 2P is too overwhelming. But that's kind of just my overall thoughts on it. I personally feel like it's a little too unbalanced towards player two, but ultimately, we've had some games so far. I don't feel like we've heard people say like, oh my gosh, I love 1-2-1-1. But I do feel like a lot of people probably haven't even noticed that much of a difference. So maybe, that just the alternating draft picks, just made it a little more intriguing and thought provoking when they're picking.
Yeah.
For me,
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So for me, I haven't actually even played 1-2-1-1. But with that, I'm kind of against it. I'm not too big at like, it could go either way. I'm not going to be super upset if it goes either way. I mean, I just prefer to stick with Nolan draft. For me, I've heard a lot of people say 1-2-1-1 leads to different team compositions and stuff like that. But for me, that just doesn't appeal to me. I, for example, played a 9-game series with Boomerang Bro, and over those 9 games, I played only 13 different characters. I didn't feel bored playing the same characters over and over. Each game was definitely unique, and so for me, the unique teams doesn't appeal to me as a factor to choose 1-2-1-1 over 1-2-2. And then, I just don't see the reason to shake it up. Especially a month ago, it made way less sense to me because there were no games even played on it, and where people were taking polls on whether we need to switch or something, and I felt like it was pretty premature. So over this last month, it's been good to see it being tried out, and although I haven't played it, I've heard a lot of feedback, and some people do like it, and some people don't. It won't be a deal breaker for me either way, whichever way it goes. But for me, I'm just sticking with the Nolan draft as my preference.
Yeah, I think someone like me who plays a lot of games, I think it's just kind of an interesting mix-up. And I think at the end of the day, no matter what we go with, Mario Baseball is still Mario Baseball. It's still going to be loads of fun. All the lovable parts about it are still going to be there. And if I had to choose, I think I would choose 1-2-1-1 just to kind of mix it up. And I think from my perspective, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages of it. But at the end of the day, I honestly love both drafts. I think I'll have loads of fun either way. And I'm just hoping that everyone can like agree and be happy with the final decision.
We've seen other drafts posted with other crazy rules, like Captain Bowser has to be right-handed, or non-Captain Bowser has to be right-handed. And moving into stuff like that, I would definitely be a lot more vocal against. But I think just switching the order up isn't too big of a shift if someone really likes Nolan draft. It's not going to be too big of an adjustment or be too much of a down like a detriment for someone to say they're not going to play anymore.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is with Rio tags coming out that hopefully we can have a tag for 1-2-1-1 draft, and then be able to have some hard data on what is the what exactly is the winning percentage for Bowser in this format, and then hopefully whether we do a ranked season or not with 1-2-1-1, as long as we have that as a tag, people will probably log some games just playing it if they have fun with it, and we can get a little more of a concrete answer as to if player 2 or second pick is that much imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
I think you bring up a great point, Vickless, that I think with the addition of tags and communities in Rio Web coming soon, TM, but I think that will be the next part of that. Instead of theory crafting and kind of taking usually pretty educated guesses on will a change be beneficial or will it be harmful, we'll have some more leeway and some more runway space to test some things and get some hard data on it, and more easily pull it back, because obviously we could take every stat file done of a 1-2-1-1 right now, or pick out dates and games and fish it out from Rio Web, but that's a lot of work and a lot of sorting and a lot of filtering, and that's just a lot to ask of one or two people, because that's usually what ends up being one or two dedicated people that pull out that data. And so having the tags to be able to easily sort that data out and see where it affects things and what changes it actually brings about, statistically, I think will definitely change how we look at changes in the future. My personal take on 1-2-1-1, I was a huge proponent of it at the beginning. I thought the idea of second pick getting some advantage that I thought they didn't have was really great, because my original thought was, like I think I talked about in the pod, the biggest pivot point that I saw in the draft right now was 9. The drop off from Madge to 10 was too huge, and there was not enough of a justification to move Madge up from 9. So player 1 getting that while also getting the most broken character in the game just seemed unfair to me. But when you actually theory craft it and go through the mock drafts, changing around the order does so much more within the top 5 that player 2 getting 3 of the top 5 instead of player 1 without it being Captain Bowser is very broken. I think that it's interesting and the team counts will be different, but I think eventually it'll settle in and it'll be just like Nolan draft. There will be a dominant draft style. I don't even think changing to one pick at a time will change that. Not with what we know right now. And so, yeah, I think really what it'll do, it'll just split up chem pairings, which I think Wario dinghies are hype. I think having more viable slap hitters because they fit into a chem tree is really nice. I think having more chem on the field is nice. Like taking a word from Baltzor, get rid of those poopy arms. Well, the best, solution you have right now in Stars Off is get a chem pairing going. So after looking at some early tournaments and looking at some more theory crafting, I'm against it, but I will wholeheartedly play it if that is the way we go. I'm not going to stop playing Mario Baseball over the draft, and I think it will be more interesting. I think it'll be less balanced, but then that just means that people that can draft really well get an advantage, and I think there is credence to having that. Like I said, I think our draft should be aiming to have some semblance of pretty perfect balance, but not at the cost of making it so hard to understand or so dry that there's no reason to pay attention to team compositions. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. Any last thoughts on 1-2-1-1 before we wrap that up?
I think one of my biggest thoughts is just it's an interesting turning point in our community, because I think the draft is such a core piece of the competitive game that we play in Mario Baseball that whatever drafting style or order we go to, it's going to reflect what we want the competitive scene to look like in the future. Do we want it to be the most balanced, strictly competitively? Do we want it to be the most fun? Do we want it to be the most open for new net players? So I think, and obviously different people have a different view on the future, but I think the decision we make has a big impact of what it looks like. And it's going to be it's going to be fun to watch and see exactly what we end up deciding on.
It's so tough serving multiple masters. I think you hit it on the head, Crazy. I think like I said, there's 3 ways you can go. Do you go for perfect balance? Do you go for entertainment? Or do you go for most easy to understand? I think, there's enough resourcing and enough games out there that understanding Nolan draft as a new player is pretty simple. It's just a normal snake draft with an additional clause of who your captain can be. But I think it'll be very interesting to see if we ever settle on a draft that takes a lot more knowledge and a theoretical barrier to entry as a new player to understand, to properly play and the net play scene. And maybe the answer to that is maybe one day we'll have a different draft style for tournament play and ranked play. There's a lot of ways it could go. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for this week. Thank you to Vickless and Matt for joining us. It was a real pleasure having you. Look out for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as always. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the podcast, and keep an eye for next week's content. But otherwise, leave us some comments. We'll obviously answer those next week again. And otherwise, adios and goodbye.
Thank you for watching the Mario Superstar Baseball podcast. If you enjoyed this one, you can look at the other one that will be right in front of you right here. Yes, right in front of your face. Make sure to watch that episode. I'm not lying. Please watch that episode. It's right in front of you. Just click the goddamn button.